Welcome, MA 103 students. This video AI corresponds to the lesson entitled Introduction to Discrete Dynamical Systems. This is a continuation of the cookie jar problem and linked to the lesson objective. Given an initial condition, manually iterate a recursion equation. In the last video, we were able to manually iterate our model to find P sub 1, P sub 2, and P sub 3. But that only provided us the amount of money in the cookie jar after 1 day, 2 days, and 3 days. And so we know for this problem that we need 250 days, which equates to 1 year, and 500 days, which equates to 2 years. So we have turned to technology, specifically Microsoft Excel, for help. This is definitely an appropriate use of technology and is tied to block 1, outcome number 3, which states that we use technology, especially when developing and using mathematical models, to execute complex and time-consuming computations when solving applied problems. To manually iterate to n equals 250 or n equals 500 would definitely be time-consuming. So let's set up our Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. We need to keep track of 2 values, so we will use the first 2 columns of the spreadsheet. The first, in column A, will track the time index n, which represents the number of workdays. The second column, column B, will track the value of P sub n, which represents the amount of money in our cookie jar after the corresponding number of days. We know that n needs to start at 0 and go through at least 500 in order to answer our question. So we're going to fill in the column up until from 0 all the way until 500. And now for column B, we know that our model has 2 parameters, and they're an A parameter and a D parameter. We're going to define these separately and then reference them as we create our equations. And for our model, as we see over to the right, our A value equals 1 and our D value equals 0.75. And so now we're set up to actually calculate within Microsoft Excel. We know that when n equals 0, this is our initial condition, and the value of P sub n, or in this case P naught, equals 15. So we'll substitute that in. And now let's use our model. P sub n equals P sub n minus 1 plus 0.75 to fill in the remaining cells within column B. In order to calculate P sub 1, we're going to enter in our model. And in this case, we know that P sub n is equal to A times P sub n minus 1. And in this case, P sub n minus 1 is the time period before. It is our initial condition. Plus D. So now we have an equation for P sub 1, which equals A times P sub n minus 1 plus D. And we reference the value for A and the value for D as the parameters. So if we enter that in, we confirm that P sub 1 equals 15.75, which is exactly what we got when we manually iterated it in the last video AI. Now what we'd like to do is be able to have Microsoft Excel replicate this calculation for the next entries all the way to n equals 500. So what I want to do in this case is go back to that equation which I entered and absolute reference the values for which I don't want to change. And in this case, I don't want A and D to change. They're my parameter values. They don't change from time period to time period. And to absolute reference these values, all I have to do is either hit F4 or in this case, put dollar signs around and so we have our equation in which we've absolute referenced our value for A and we've absolute referenced our value for D. And this will lock those values in and they won't change as we drag down our equation to fill in n, where n equals 1 all the way down to n equals 500. And if I double click the corner, it will drag down that equation for me. And as you can see, p sub n minus 2 is equal to 16.5, which is exactly as we calculated in the previous video AI. Now, in order to answer the question, what we'll have to do is we'll have to scroll down to 250, and we find that 250, our value is 202.5, which when we interpret that solution, after 1 year, we will have $202.50 in our cookie jar. If we continue to scroll down to 500, we find that after 500 workdays, which is 2 years, we have $390 in our cookie jar. Answering the question, how much money we have in our cookie jar after 1 year and after 2 years. Stay tuned for our next video AI in which we'll interpret these solutions and conduct some sensitivity analysis. Thanks for watching.